This is Wozanayo KP and welcome to Producer's Corner. So in today's video we will be holding a mixing and mastering session for Gqom, because a lot of people have been requesting me to do mixing and mastering tutorial, but instead of making a full tutorial explaining a bunch of things, I thought I should do a series of videos where I basically mix and master some projects in front of you guys so that you can learn as you go. So that, because a lot of things when it comes to mixing and mastering are hard to explain, so it's gonna be best for me to like demonstrate and show you guys how I actually mix and master some of the projects that I get, so yeah, before we start with the video, I do offer some post production services. So if you need me to make a beat for you, or you need to buy a beat from me, maybe you're a vocalist, the price list is in the description, and I do offer some mixing and mastering services as well. So if you need some touches on your song, the price list for that is also in the description, as well as the contact details. But with that being said, let us actually begin with the video. So in case you haven't noticed, I changed the theme to green because it kind of looks cool. I think I'll keep this theme for like mixing and mastering, and then we'll switch back to red when we're like creating a song or whatnot. So yeah man, there's nothing much to say. We're gonna get straight into the video. I'll explain everything as I go, and as you can see, we have some stems over here. We have some stems. These are stems, but we're working with stems now because we want to get that professional feel. But because I always use a project when I'm mixing and mastering, I never really use stems, but there are some clients that come to me and send stems, and it's either you love or hate using stems, because it's like, okay, you get every sound there is in that project, but you can't like change or alter these sounds. So you have to make sure that the client is like has good sound selection, the song sounds overall, it's like a good song, because you can't change anything. Everything is just like finished at this point. All you have to do is just to clean it up and add your touches or whatnot. So the project is from Angel. Shout out to Angel. Unikili project yakhe bawangimixele nemasterishele because yayisoko nomntana wami, but yeah man, we'll get into it, because it wouldn't make sense to mix and master my own songs, because I mix and master as I go. I mix as I go, so my songs are gonna sound good, not bragging, but they are gonna sound good, even if they don't have some mixing done. So now when we take someone else's song, it's gonna sound a bit, also Angel did a good job with leveling and all that, but I had to reset everything so that we get that beginning feel like we're starting everything from scratch. But he did a very good job at like layering everything and leveling yonke, but I reset everything, so everything is like loud at this point. So we're just gonna select the loudest part of the song, and then we're just gonna play that, and you guys are gonna tell me, and then after that we're just gonna basically go ahead and mix the song. Now it's not too bad. This is what happens when you mix as you go. You level your volume or whatever as you go. Everything sounds good, but I think now all we have to do is just a few touches, a few edits here and there, and then we're good. You don't have to do much. Where is the bass line? There's supposed to be a bass line over here. There's supposed to be a bass line here, so let me quickly try and export the bass line, and then we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I've located the bass line. This is the bass line over here, and this is how it sounds. I already assigned everything. Oh, I thought that I assigned everything to the mixer, but let us go ahead and do that. Now this is going to be very confusing because everything is like labeled angel this, angel that, but we can make it work. I think I shouldn't have titled the project like this when I was saving, but you know, it's nothing we can't handle. So basically you're going to select the loudest part of your song, you know, so that everything is like playing, yeah, but there are sounds that we're going to have to actually go back to, because as you can see they play at separate times. So we're just gonna use this spot for now, and some would say just select everything and then adjust things one by one, but this works only if like you have a good ear, you know. I feel like if you don't have a good ear, it's the best to like mute your sounds, right, and then, you know, sort of adjust everything according to your liking, because that way you can identify if a sound is, you know, becoming a problem in your song. Because once you know, combine all these sounds, you won't be able to hear if like there's a sound that has, you know, too much bass or too much mid frequencies or high frequencies. So this way you can be able to like gauge, okay, the sound is a bit too muddy, and then you can be able to like fix it, yeah, and what I love about this stage is that you can mix as you go. You can add your effects as you go, right? You don't have to level and level and level and then mix at like a separate stage, right? I know this is a bad idea because you are supposed to get a clear idea of the whole song playing, and then you're supposed to adjust the volumes when everything is playing. But I find that this way is like the best, you know, because you can always readjust a few things after, you know, you have like your leveling done, right? So the first few things that I like to make sure of are the kick. So just gonna set the kick here. Just make sure that it hits below -6 right there, -6 dB. Then I want to locate the lead, right? I'm just going to use the names over here to sort of find, you know, each sound that I'm looking for. The lead is over here. It's at 39, so we're going to go to 39, 38, 39. There's the lead, right? And then we're just going to adjust it according to how we want it to sound. Now what I always do is have presets that are ready for me, yabo, so that I can just slap them on, and this creates a bit of consistency in your mixes, yabo, so that ungafumaniseki enye ingoma sounds sharp and it sounds loud in a certain way, you know, high frequencies and all that, and then you have another song that sounds too low or whatever, yabo. So creating these presets for like specific sounds that you know you're going to use is going to help like create that bit of consistency. For example, this lead, I always like to use this preset over here, and if you're looking for the, you know, my presets and all that, the link is in the description. Now we have something that sounds like that, you know, it's not too sharp, you know, but it's there, yabo. Now the kick is giving me a bit of some problems, so I'd like to address them. Now the kick is a bit too punchy for me, yabo, and it doesn't really have a lot of low end, if I'm, you know, listening correctly. Thing is, now I'm mixing with my headphones, so I won't be able to hear everything properly, but and I'm at a low volume, so I'm just gonna I'm just trying to remove that punch kula kick, yabo. And we're just gonna adjust the, let's just do a harsh cut like this. Another thing that you should be doing when you're mixing is muting and unmuting your effects, so that you know that they are making a difference. Yeah, but if you're switching this off and it doesn't make a difference, then you should probably not add any EQ or whatnot. So this is creating enough difference for me, so not too much, yeah, but just enough for me to like notice. Right, not really, we didn't really remove that punch, it's still there, but we've made a difference. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna apply a cut over there, just to cut off those lower frequencies. And then a cheat that I always do, especially when it comes to kicks, I mean, is either I apply this preset over here so that it boosts, you know, those sub frequencies, and then yeah, there's no need to boost these ones. Or if a kick already sounds good, it just needs a bit of punch, you know, maybe it's too soft, you know, you do have some kicks that are too soft. Sometimes a simple trick is just applying the sound goodizer, right? It just adds that bit of a punch to your kick, but I think it's reapplying that punch that we're trying to remove over here. But for now, I'm not liking this kick, by the way, so that's why I'm like having problems with it, but we're gonna make it work. Just gonna add this one. Let me just okay, so next is going to chants, like your vox and all that, because you're going like slowly and building your song, right? So you're gonna go to vox, it's around 40 right here. So I find it that when you're adjusting volumes like this, it's easy for you to like say assume this is too loud. You know, you think that okay, this is too loud, let me turn it down. But now when you're playing these sounds all together, you'll find it that it's very, very low, and you're just gonna need to readjust it again. So even if a sound, you know, comes across as loud, it doesn't necessarily mean it's loud, yeah, bro. It's gonna need to be loud whenever the other sounds are playing, yeah, bro. So it might sound loud now, but it's gonna make sense whenever you're playing everything together. Now what I always do is utilize this EQ over here. It's very, very simple. It's just to apply the cut over here. This cut is very important. Like to some of your sounds, whenever you're playing, especially in like a sound system, you know, a chant wave by chant, it has like a bit of bass. You can hear those bass frequencies in a chant, or sometimes in a tom. There's too much low frequencies. It's sort of disturbing the kick as well. Yeah, bro. So a simple cut like this is gonna help a lot, and it's gonna sound your mix sound clean, especially on the low end, because in Ngaki, ibaki low end. Yeah, but it sound amati low end. Yeah, so rather just apply this EQ over here. You know, there's no need for you to open up a whole entire EQ to do some cuts, yeah, bo? Yeah. Then you can just adjust it like so, but too much is gonna make your sound too thin, yeah, bo? Just enough, yeah, bo? And then next we're gonna move on to probably another chant. It's at 41. Isn't this the same thing? This is the same thing. This is the same thing. Yeah, this is pretty much the same thing. So we're gonna have to delete this one. Angel, what are you doing? 41, delete that one, so that we keep things nice and tidy. So we're going to look for another vocal or something, which is right here at 24, and we're going to go to 24 here. Okay, there we go. Now, okay, we're done. I think that sounds good. It should be loud whenever other sounds are playing. Something that I like to do again is to pan these sort of left and right, yeah, because now you have these chants sort of playing at the same time. So we're just gonna pan it a little bit on the side, you know, maybe 10% and then 10% to this side, just to give them a bit of space, but if you want to, you can just, you know, go crazy, make sure that it's like 100% left and 100% right. But yeah, man, it's gonna sound bad. Don't do that, because abanye benu bazathi ha ndayibona KP, so we're gonna go to 25, and there we go. Okay, now noticing a problem, which is this one is a bit sharp. There's like a frequency that's it's a good vox, but it's a bit, there we go. It was probably paired with like a snare or like a percussion in the background or like a shaker. So if your EQ isn't doing much difference, don't turn it, like don't add it. Just gonna do that. Maybe just adjust it a bit. Okay, then of course we're gonna apply a cut. Now to spice things a little bit, we're gonna add a delay. All right, just gonna add a delay, something like this. And then a trick that I usually do is go to presets, go to stereo effect, put the time on 4, and then just dial down the mix level. Now you can still hear it, but not too much. Just to create a nice bounce effect. And then we're gonna add a reverb. Should we add it maybe after? Then a bit of reverb, just to create some I don't want to say space, but like just something. So that it doesn't sound too dry. And then another thing that I'm noticing is that this vocal is a bit on the right side, so either we can do this so it just stays in the middle, but as you can see, or as you can hear, it really just alters the sound a bit, so we can't really just do this. We can just apply it a bit, but you know, it just depends on you. But I'm just going to do it manually till I see that my meter right there is like, you know, balancing a bit, so that it doesn't really just, you know, affect the stereo fields and all that. In case we want to pan another sound to the left or right. Next, we're going to look for another vocal, just in case, and there isn't another vocal. 24, we've done that. Okay, so from here on, we're moving on to sounds like toms and percussions and snares. I'm going to start with the tom. 30. just gonna, there's not much going on the low end, but just gonna add a bit of, you know, mid frequencies, turn down a bit of those high frequencies. Okay, better. And the thing is, whenever you're mixing, you have to sort of consider other sounds. The reason why you see me doing these boosts and these cuts over here is we have to think about other frequencies, right? Maybe we have some hats, some shakers that will want to take up that high frequencies. You get what I mean? So now if you have chants that are sounding too sharp and too like loud on the high frequencies and all that, then they are gonna like clash and all that. Yeah, so we're just trying to avoid some clashing and give space to other sounds. Yeah, so that's why you're doing that's why you're seeing me doing these cuts over here, right? Next, let's look for another set of toms, because Gqom early, and we do use a lot of toms, and this is another tom, but it doesn't really play throughout the whole entire song. Now we can just, you know, let it play out as loud as it wants to be, because it doesn't really, you know, play across the whole entire song. And then next it's okay, I don't see another tom, so we're good to go. Okay, so let's move on to the percussions. It's at 36. Okay, so I'm noticing that it's a bit separated, so I'm gonna try and merge and see what it does to the sound. Okay, makes it sound good. So just gonna turn it down like this, then just gonna turn it down. So you want to make sure that these types of sounds are a bit louder, you know, when you're mixing separately like this, because they tend to get sort of swallowed by the whole entire song. Komba awuyiva sound anymore. So you want to make sure that you adjust it in a sense that it's loud, yabo, and then you can adjust it again as you build your mix. So we're gonna go to 32. Okay, so an important thing that you need to note down is, again, whenever you're building a song and you're making a song, I'm noticing something here is sound selection is very important when you're mixing and mastering. Like, you have to think of your sound selection when you're making a song, right? Not when you're mixing. When you're creating a song and building a song, sound selection is very important, because abanye ba select sounds that are bad. Yeah, well, you guys select a lot of bad sounds, and then you expect that, okay, the mixing engineer is going to make it sound good, or when I'm mixing and mastering, the song is going to sound good. Yeah, but when you get to that stage, you start struggling because, you know, the sound is bad. Now your song becomes, you know, an entire different thing, because trust me, one sound can affect like a whole entire song. If one sound is sounding terrible, your mix is going to just become, you know, bad as well. So now I'm noticing that these two sounds here are very similar. Like, they're very similar. Where's the other? Yeah, and go, they are playing at the very same pattern. Yeah, so now I can just basically mute any of these sounds. I can mute any of these sounds, and they're not really gonna make a difference. See, it's not gonna make a difference. Yeah. So when you're picking sounds like this, make sure that if you're gonna use the same pattern, you're gonna layer the same pattern, maybe choose a hat on that place so that it can sort of work well with the percussion. Yeah, but I'm imagining now that I'm working with the client, so I have to leave the sound like that. Yeah, so that's the thing, you know, when you're working with, you know, clients and all that, it's like you can't just tell them what to do on their own song. If they tell you, I have this song, I want you to mix and master it, there's nothing you can do. You have to work on the song the way it is. Okay, it's good, and it does have a bit of reverb, so I don't want to add another layer of reverb to just, but we are going to add delay, stereo effect, again, just to create bounce, or you can put the time on 8. You can't hear it, but you can hear it at the very same time. Yeah, well, it's enough to make a difference, but not too much difference. It's the or, and then let's go to the bass drum. It's at 23, and there we go. Okay, so now when you're entering bass drum territory, or tom, or secondary kick, whatever, it's very important to make sure that your kick and your bass drum are working together very well, because you'll have a bass drum that will cancel out those frequencies from a kick, and there's some phasing issues and all that, but I don't want to complicate the video. Now in this case, luckily the bass drum is hitting like at spots that the kick isn't really hitting, because the kick is like going at a 3-step pattern, and then but in a case where your bass drum is too heavy or like it's too muddy, all you have to do is just do this, but we're gonna leave some of these lower frequencies because the bass drum just adds a bit to the kick. Good. And then next, sorry, not next, but if ever you're still struggling to make your bass drum sound good, something that you should do is just to boost the frequency that you're hearing that is a problem. So once you boost it up and you're like, okay, this is the frequency that is the problem, just adjust, but in this case we don't want to adjust the bass drum. I think it's fine like that. And if you can listen, the bass frequency, the bass drum does have some high frequency, but I don't have a problem with them. I think they sound good, and that's why, like I said, with this tom, I adjusted the high frequency because we have sounds like this where they have that high frequency, and you don't want your sounds to just clash and create a whole entire mess and all that. So these are just drums, and there's a lot that you already have to do in drums. Luckily this is Gqom. There's not much that you need to do, but when you enter 3-step and all that, you have percussions that are playing at the very same time, and hats and shakers. You're gonna run into a lot of problems. So this is like the easiest genre to work on mixing and mastering. The next we have a snare. You can go to 34. Now you can hear that the snare has those high frequencies, and luckily there was nothing that was occupying those high frequencies. Yeah, sorry for that, but imagine if the tom you see how you can't hear the snare because now the tom is having those high frequencies as well as the snare. And if you give a bit of space for the snare, you can still hear the impact of the snare, right? Then you can just maybe boost it a bit. Not gonna do too much. Lower the whole thing. But you don't have to add a whole entire EQ. Soothe. Hey, we have to wait now. Okay, soothe, and you're doing a bunch of things, a bunch of boosting to your snare. That is for EDM. If you're doing EDM, house, you know, maybe you're gonna adjust your snares like this, but Gqom is just free flow. Yeah, boy, you just flow like I'm doing right now. And let's move on to maybe the clap. It's at 31. Okay, so now the clap is a bit, it's not too sharp. You can hear it, but you can't hear it. Right, in this case, what I like to do is add something like a stereo enhancer. I think the clap was already separated, but sometimes to increase that bit of presence from like a clap, separating the thingies would, you know, help. But I guess we could just adjust the clap so that it sounds, it has a bit more presence. Or if that doesn't work, you can just add an EQ. It's just gonna find the sweet spot. There we go. Okay, it's enough to make a difference. That's cool. I think it sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, next is apparently a shaker. I wonder what is a shaker doing. Gqom. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I thought it was like a shaker loop, but okay, that sounds good. Not much to adjust. Some will do this so that it sounds sharp, but I don't want it to sound as sharp, so I'm just gonna let it sit there. And then you're gonna have what else do we have here? What else do we have? Nexus, flute. Okay, we have like the risers and all that. Okay, so let's go over here. We have a tom that plays right at the buildup. Here it is. What the hell? Okay, editing now. There we go. Yeah, now it's a tom that plays at the build-up. Yeah, but I don't think it needs to be low. It needs to be like be very punchy, just to emphasize that okay, this is the build-up. Yeah, well, now there's no need for you to really adjust it that much, but it makes it sound very much clean as opposed to this. Yeah, but just gonna do something like this. It sounds so much better. Like it sounds very much like clean. Then you can just boost those high frequencies a bit, and then those mid frequencies, so that it sounds a bit sharp. But it's all about preference. Yeah, but you should have preference when it comes to mixing and mastering. Perfect. Just gonna adjust it a bit. And next we have an uplifter. We'll go here. No need for any crazy mixing and mastering. We have your crash sound right here. Okay. Sounds very good. Then what else do we have? What else? Are we done with drums? Are we finished? Okay, there's a rising Hoover sound apparently over here at 11. It won't make sense to like level that one because there's no sound that is playing. Now I think it's safe to say we're gonna be entering a melody territory. Yeah, boy, and melodies are very tricky, so yeah, That's why I think it's very important to like have good sound selection. I'm recording this video at 1. It's almost 2, so yeah. Anyways, what next? Okay, let's start with the raw hit, of course. Okay, here's the raw hit, 21. And a raw hit is one of those sounds, again, that sort of fade in the background at times. Hey, but it's because like we beg it too low, yeah, but especially now when you're adjusting without any bass lines and melodies, it's easy for you to be like, okay, it's right at the background, it's sitting perfectly, but it's sitting perfectly only with the drums, yeah, but it won't sit perfectly with the melodies. So it needs to be as loud as it can. And then what I always do is lower these frequencies, and then I sometimes boost depending on the occasion, or you just do something like this. It's always about the little details, and then maybe turn it down, or you can just make it higher like this, because if you listen, there's that bit of sizzle that comes with adjusting this over here. But let's just keep it a bit neutral like this. Yeah, but it also depends on what the client wants, yeah, because you're going to have some people that will tell you, I need the kick to be distorted, so now you must add what is this plugin? Distortion. Don't distort fast distortion. Yeah, well, you find people that are like, okay, I want you to add that. So there's a lot of like sound designing things that sometimes we have to do depending on the client's request. I'm trailing off. Let's go to this FX Texas sound. Now if you listen closely, there are some low frequencies. So if you apply this, do that, oh man, I'm doing it wrong. It's supposed to be like this. You can hear those like frequencies that are down there. You're telling me there's no like frequencies that you guys are hearing there? Even the EQ tells you that there's something going on down there. What that means is that you're going to run into some problems when you add basses and bass lines and all that. It's not going to make a huge difference, but when you want that clean sound at times, it's safe to like just remove all those frequencies down here. It sounds way more cleaner and more direct, yeah, bro. Then just boost a bit of those high frequencies. I'm not making much difference, but just to create some sizzle onto that sound. Okay, next we're gonna go into this sound from FX Nexus. Angel maka sponsor from Nexus because yay, it's only Nexus here. It's only Nexus. This one has some frequencies as well. You can hear that frequency is a bit of a problem. So okay, so the sounds should be very clear and direct. You're removing that muddiness. Now, gonna go to purity, the best plugin to ever exist, without like killing your RAM or your CPU or whatever you call these things. This sound is like perfect, and we're just gonna add a bit of reverb because it does sound dry. Yeah, well, just gonna make it wet a bit. Create a bit of ambience, right? But make sure that you remove those low frequencies. By the way, this is not killing all the frequencies, that they are just, you know, tuning it down. But yeah. Next, what should we do next? A flute is the bass, probably. Why is there two? Hold up. Hey, I've never seen this one. Two basses at the same time. Hey, what is going on? Angel, if you have something you know about music production, but tell us. Playing the very same like pattern, but I'm gonna remove this one because I'm just gonna remove this one because it has more of an automation. Hey Angel, hey, genius. He's a genius. Maybe there's a secret he knows, but we're just gonna was it this one? Yeah, just gonna delete. There we go. Is it too early to edit the bass? It's not too early. Let's go ahead. Let's play everything. Now it's all up to you. Some people love to hear like that bass, yeah, but sometimes I don't like it too much because it's like you have your GMS playing as well that has its own frequencies. So I'd rather like keep it, you know, the bass very low at a minimum, unless, you know, you're doing it dombol or whatnot, but keep the bass at a minimum. You know, some people might be listening through like, you know, subwoofers. You don't want to kill their ears, man. Come on. Next we've done this one, we've done that one, this one, toms, shakers. I think it's time to get to the bass line, which is here. Okay, so now we're just gonna basically adjust the bass line and, you know, do a few tweaks. I can hear that it's a bit edited already, yeah, well, so there's not much I can do, because now if I add on top of what is being done here, it's just gonna make it a bit saturated and it won't sound as good. So we're just gonna not happy with the mastering of the bass line, but it doesn't sound as bad. It doesn't sound bad. It's just preference and all that. But now it's time to add something like Gqom kanje. It's 12 is supposed to be playing, but it seems to, okay, here it is. You should be able to hear your commerce playing, so like they should work together with the bass line, yeah, without them seeming to clash. Then we have a lead, maybe if you really like. I just love to boost these frequencies over here for the lead. Okay. Now just sort of adjusting the sounds that we see as the motive. How did I forget this? Okay. Now from this point on, all you have to do is sort of readjust all these other knobs over here. If you're like hearing that a specific sound is, you know, fading in the background, just gonna readjust it again. So now basically you're giving back the power, you know, to the raw hit. It's again important to listen. I'm not sure if I said this, but it's important to like listen to other devices as well. So if you have like earphones, other speakers, listen to them so that you can sort of get an idea of how they sound onto other devices. If you have a car, go to your car, listen to all these mixes. Yeah, but because the thing is, with mixing, there's like a lot of like listening that you need to do. There's like a lot of listening that you should do, a lot of takes that you like redo again. Was I save a mix? You're in my somewhere else, and then you're gonna be like, hey, I sound great, and you have to go back, readjust whatever you've heard that was wrong. So there's a lot of listening. There's a reason why some people get tired of this, is simply because it's annoying and boring and repetitive. So some people just decide, you know what, let me just do basic mixing and mastering and just forget about the whole entire song. Okay, so now we're just gonna go add a spot where there are other sounds playing. So just gonna do something like this. I remember Angel specifically telling me to remove these guitars. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to remove them. They sound good. They sound good. They don't sound bad. Let's just apply a mixing chain, a guitar mixing chain or something, and see how it sounds. By the way, if you're looking for these mixing presets, we do have them on my site, so you can check those out. That isn't too bad, but let's check for another one and just compare. Not too bad. Let's check another one. We're just gonna compare our options. Okay, next. I know that, you know, some of you guys will say they're not making any difference, but these are specifically meant for, you know, certain types of guitars, so that's why they're not necessarily adjusting to this one. This is like an electric guitar, so sometimes these will work on a not a steel guitar, an acoustic guitar. Yeah, well, know that, but yeah. Another hack that I always do, specifically when it comes to guitars, is also add like kickstart, just to make it a bit more interesting. I don't know. I see why Angels told me to remove this one, because I'm not sure about the mastering, but okay, let's just, I have another set of mastering guitars here, so I'm just gonna apply those quickly. Then we're gonna reapply or kickstart again. So we're gonna go to miscellaneous. It did create enough difference to not make the guitars, you know, sound all over the place. And I think we should be done. Man. I mean, what other sound is there? I have a flute supposedly playing over here, around here. Where is it? There we go. Somewhere around here. Three. Okay, bit of sound designing thing. I just want to take this guitar a bit in the background, you know, just to decrease the dry, increase the wetness, the wet level. Now you can see that it just blends nicely with the rest of the sounds. So hire me if you want to sound engineer. Hire me, hire me. Yeah. So I mean that's every sound I can see at the moment. There's expand as well at 4. And I'm not necessarily a fan of that sound, so what we're gonna do is it's either we apply kickstart. Bear with me here. Kickstart can make it a bit more bouncy, ne? Or you can just make it fade in the background. Yeah, it is making some difference, is doing some difference, but it's not really doing much necessarily. Where is the oh, there it is. Then another thing that just adds some flavor is go to miscellaneous, then you're going to go to pancake. This one just sort of takes your sound from left to right. So now, I'm sorry if you're listening through a phone. If you're listening through some speakers, some headphones, you're going to hear some difference. It's not a lot of difference, but it's like enough just to make things a bit more spicy, just to keep the listener intrigued. Next is the riser. What's going on here? 8 here, basically. At 8. Okay, look, I don't have a problem with that. What we're going to do is just going to make some fine adjustments. Just going to add a delay. I know been adding a lot of delays, but we're just going to create a nice effect here. Don't tell me that doesn't sound good. Don't tell me that it doesn't sound good. Yeah, well, you can hear it that the delay is just leaving that trail. Then we can maybe add, there's no need to add some reverb, but again, ambience, and we're just blending these sounds together so that nothing sounds out of touch with everything that's going on over here. Okay, so now we're just gonna look for more sounds that are muted, that we haven't mixed into the song. First is the tag Angeli Upper, so you're just gonna go to 2. Yes, through working as like a course producer at times, I usually edit tags about. I always edit tags so that they're soft. Yeah, well, you can hear them, but they're soft a bit. One of the many beats is a hip hop. Sometimes if you're listening to a lot of these beats, a hip hop, you don't hear the tags loudly. Yeah, but just hear them in a subtle way. So I always edited my tags in a sense that they're a bit soft, but producers would come at me like, yo, can you just raise up the volume, make sure that the tag is just loud, man. I want the tag to sound very, very loud. And I'm like, yo, fit, okay, bruh. And then I start working, and for my sake, it's like it's only one thing, it's just the tag, and the person is gonna be like, yo, fetu kabuyele ki project lawe unyuselela tag yam, yabo. So come yo fungo vuli project ngunavir. Yeah, so just gonna kill off those frequencies. Then we're gonna make it a bit brighter. Yeah, well, JB ibe atia shine, yeah, well. Am I happy with the delay and the reverb? Not really. The thing is, this tag was mastered by me, and now I'm like having problems with the way it sounds. But it's cool, man. It's cool. I don't think I need to readjust and re-edit everything. But we should be done. I think we have to add the hoover. Okay, sounds good, but hear me out. Hear me out. Maybe we can add a miscellaneous kickstart. Let's hear how it sounds. Okay, so you can hear that some difference is there, yeah, but again, it's about preference, yeah. So if you don't prefer that effect on your sound, it's all cool, but it's all about just being creative at times when it comes to mixing and mastering. So we have GMS here, as I see, but I think it was meant to be the baseline. So at 15, we're just going to clear things up there so that I can get a better view at what I'm left with. You know, are there any sounds that I left behind? The riser, crash. I think these didn't make it in the cut, man. I think shakers, expand, we have that, riser, guitar, riser again. I don't think these were probably not part of the song, but I do see something here. Okay, we do have some sounds here. Hey, my eyes have another riser, apparently 7. Isn't this the same one? It's kind of the same, but okay. So now in a case like this, just pan left and right, bruh. Just pan left, pan right. Okay. Thing is, this one doesn't have enough presence, but we're just gonna leave it there. And then apparently you have another one here, 5. There's some clashing going on here. So we're just gonna create something, yeah. It's either you add, like, those crashes are just, you know, sort of clashing together. So we're just gonna go to miscellaneous, go to gross beat, and try to find a cut over here. Exactly. This is what I'm here for. Like, the color is Zindo, you know. So I just made a decision just to like counter this thing, because Nyani, if you were listening properly, you could hear that this crash was just like fading in the background. It wasn't doing much. And make sure that you never increase your fader like this, but I just wanted to boost it up a bit here. You can hear the difference very much clearly. No, just keeps things a bit exciting. Then apparently we have another one over here at 4. Sininzi iziriser, man. Sininzi iziriser. Ezenjani umfana da. But anyways, is a Gqom. But this one is the same as this one, so we're just gonna treat them basically the same. Okay, let's just do this one. yeah, it sounds good that way because there isn't much, you know, clashing going on over here. Honestly, what's this? I think we should be done. 6. What are you? Okay, at the beginning. Another crash at the beginning. Angel, there's a crash. Start up before name. Yes, fuck yeah. It's about leads now. Fuck who kickstart window yonke for it. But not too much kickstart, just enough to make a difference. And I think we should be done. We should be done now. This is our mix. Just gonna give it a couple of listens off camera, and then, you know, do some readjustments. Just gonna do some readjustments and all that, and then I'll just, you know, play the final thing for you guys, and then we can proceed to mastering because it's another stage. Okay, so this part of the video was recorded on a completely different day because I wanted to listen to the mix as many times as I can, just to see if I might catch some imperfections or some mistakes I might have done. But fortunately I didn't really, you know, find any mistakes I needed to fix, because I listened through my monitors as well as my, you know, other headphones as well, right? I just, you know, did a few adjustments here and there, but there isn't much that I did after, you know, mixing and all that. So then I proceeded to, you know, master the whole entire song. Yeah, bro. Now the thing is, with mastering, I wish I could just sit with you guys like I did with mixing and explain everything and show you guys the whole entire process, but mastering is a lot, especially if you get into the finer details of mastering. It's a lot. Yeah, but it's not as easy as just turning up the volume of your whole entire song and, you know, using an EQ to boost a few frequencies and then you're done. Yeah, but there are compressors, there are limiters, there are saturators that people use for their masters, right? There are different textures that people go for when they are mastering. That's why a song sounds differently when, you know, when it's mastered compared to when it was, you know, in that mixing stage. Yeah, bro. So what I did was I'm gonna basically play the song for you guys so that you can listen to the whole entire song when it's, you know, mixed and mastered as well. But I'm just gonna show you guys a quick trick that I always use when it comes to mastering without, you know, breaking a sweat or, you know, struggling to get your song to sound loud and good and clean as well, because mastering sometimes mastering really ruins the song. I've seen it through a couple of projects I've done. Yeah, bro. I can mix the song and it becomes so perfect, and then when it's time to master, it just becomes something different. It's, you know, it becomes a real struggle sometimes. Yeah, bro. So I'm just gonna show you guys the easiest way I usually do this for like a beginner. Yeah, bro, without getting into too much detail. So what I did was I used ozone. I always use ozone for my mastering chains as like that last step. You know, I always use ozone because it is very easy to use if you use presets, basically, because it's where I always go to, right? But nowadays I'm starting to create my own presets. I'm starting to like add my own stuff over here, but whenever I feel lazy or whenever I feel like the song is already sounding good but I just need that last boost, that's when I come over here to my presets. Not my presets, but I come over here to presets, and then I choose whatever fits the specific type of song I'm doing. Yeah, bro. If I'm doing like a clean gospel song, I always go to this CD master over here because it doesn't really do too much to the song. Even if you look over here, it doesn't add a lot. Yeah, bro. And then there are other presets, for example, here that you can add. For example, brighten the overall mix or brighten wide. So basically you're going to listen to the whole entire song and you're going to hear what type of song it is, you know, what type of energy it gives and what it needs for its master. That's when you start, you know, choosing all these presets, all forward, added warmth, added focus. That's when you know, go into other presets if you want to. Yeah, but the reason why I love Ozone like a lot is simply because of like the many tools it gives you, because I don't know how to use Ozone to its full potential. There are people who know how to use Ozone from start to finish, but I haven't learned everything that I need to know, but I know enough for me to actually, you know, master a song and just, you know, call it a day. Because as you can see, you have a bunch of tools over here. You have clarity, a dynamic EQ, an equalizer, exciter, imager, a vintage EQ, vintage compressor, vintage limiter or whatnot. So there's like a bunch of these tools that you can choose from over here. Now if you're a person that's not too much on, you know, mixing and mastering, this is like the best plugin you can go for, right? Then people like us, you know, sometimes we listen to the texture of the song. Like the texture of the song is important, you know, at the last, you know, mastering stage and all that. So we won't use Ozone all the time. I won't use Ozone all the time. Sometimes I'm looking for a different texture on my master, so sometimes I'll go for a fab filter, limiter, or a saturator, or I'll go to Waves plugin sometimes to just get a different feel for the whole entire mastering process. But trust me, if I'm just feeling a bit, you know, lazy, or I just don't want to do much, I just load up Ozone and add like a preset and then I'm done, right? Some people might say, yeah man, you can just add Maximus, because Maximus and, you know, all these others, all these other plugins from FL Studio do offer, you know, some presets as well, or some mastering presets over here, but they don't give you that same feel that Ozone gives you. Sometimes you can really tell that, hey, Maximus is doing a lot, or like your multi-band compression, I think is the name of the plugin, your multi-band compressor from FL Studio, because I do see a lot of people using that plugin for mastering, you know, in their mastering chains, and then they basically add, you know, this multi-band compressor over here, and then they just load up a preset, maximize, and then, you know, the song sounds loud and it's good. But now it changes the texture, you know, it doesn't sound, you know, professionally made, or like it doesn't sound close to professionals. It sounds, you know, very, I don't know how to explain all these things that we hear, you know, in these different songs, or like you're playing it in a different setup, it sounds very different. So yeah man, that's why I just go to something like Ozone, and then I just add those presets, because I know that a lot of these engineers, sometimes they do use Ozone and as well as create these presets, because as you can see, these are expert curated presets. So you can just go to a person that's like, you know, and then choose the preset basically. Then what I did, I just took an EQ and then boosted those high frequencies a bit. I could have done it through Ozone here, because there's an equalizer as well, boosting those high frequencies, but I just wanted to use the parametric EQ and then boost the frequencies I wanted to boost, just to make it a bit more bright and, you know, shinier in a way. So like I said, there's a lot that goes into mastering. This is just like an easy hack for like beginners, but I usually just stay an hour or so, or maybe even less, you know, trying to fiddle with the mastering chain that I'm going for over here. But it's just, this one is just like the easiest one that I always go to whenever I'm like working on a Gqom beat. Now that being said, I believe we can start playing the whole entire project so that you guys can listen to how it sounds as a complete song.